If you do cold traffic at an early stage of the business, it's going to be absolute suicide for business. We spend $80,000 a month just on Facebook and Instagram ads alone, right? And I never recommend it for people that are doing less than $500,000 a year. The bigger guys, they probably won't promote a smaller person.
100%, yeah.
Okay, we have Sabine on the call. Sabine, tell me a little bit about you, what kind of coaching that you do and how you got into it.
Well, I lost my mother when I was 20, and I actually wanted to be a musician, but that event really changed everything for me. You know, I was born in Germany, and I grew up with the whole German background sort of thing, and it was like, okay, I always wanted to be in this artistic kind of environment. That death made it so where like I couldn't rely on anything. Things were changed immediately, and I thought I needed to be more practical, precise, follow that sort of thing, because all of a sudden everything was gone. I got very taken with the fact that death can change everything. So I became a pathologist. I studied death, and the more I was interested in death, the more I got interested in life. It's that pendulum effect, right?
Yep.
And so out of curiosity or thinking, is this really all there is, or is there more? The interest in coaching and helping people came really out of trying to prove that it was potentially wrong, or I didn't really know, or what else was actually possible. And it probably actually sort of was a so-called accidental, it's not accidental, but I'm always sitting in so here I'm working in a hospital, sitting in an office, people just come in, sit down, start talking to me about all their stuff, their problems, relationships, whatever was going on. And I liked that this was going on. I really enjoyed doing this sort of thing. It was an organic sort of happening. It started 25 years ago. I hadn't planned on doing this. And I've heard this with my clients. Oh, I've worked on my mother. I'm good. You're never good. It's always there, right? But the thing was all of a sudden, oh, I am now the mother, and I want to be a good mother. And what does that actually mean? Does that mean I just sort of blindly follow things that have always gone on, or is there more to it? And then my kids, they don't really listen to what I say. They copy what I do. And I thought, oh, I better go to clean up my act, because if they see me saying A but doing B, no. This combination of death and having a second generation or other generations, the impact was great. So that's really how I got, and it's been going on for 25 years, while I'm actually a pathologist in a hospital setting. Still am working full time, but the real love is this between death and life, healthcare, disease care, what's possible.
So tell me a little bit about the business then, Sabine. What's going on? Who do you work with? How's it going? Give me a snapshot.
Snapshot is I've been working with people for the last 20 years, doing one-on-ones, personal, in-person coachings, group settings, whatnots. But it's always been referral, word of mouth, and what I know. What I realize now is I want to take this up on a much bigger scale, because I want to reach more people, because the stakes are high these days.
Got it. And so what is the constraint? What is it that you want to work on? Is it how to scale reaching more people, or what is it that you want to work on?
Yes, how to scale reaching more people, and how to actually attract the clients that want to not only deal with certain things, but go deep and not just do the quick fix stuff.
Got it. Well, those are two very different things, right? So
Yes.
we can talk about the first one or the second one. The first one is how to scale up the business. The second is really making sure that you filter down to the right kind of person.
Yep.
Which one would you
I
want to work?
think that, well, I think that you have to go with the second one first, because if you are not getting to the actual right people, the other stuff doesn't really matter.
Well, the thing is, like, look, both of those things are true at the same time, right? If
Okay.
you don't have the people, you can't filter them down to the right kind of person. And if you put too much filtering before you have the right kind of people, what happens is it becomes very, very difficult to establish the right kind of traffic source, right? So while we can look at the second one first, what happens is if we start filtering down too early, we will essentially eliminate a lot of the possible traffic that we could get. So I would say we should flip it on its head and actually look at the traffic source first.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Yep.
So up until now, you've been getting word of mouth, and that's been going on for a couple of decades, right?
Yep.
And have you ever explored any other traffic?
Not really. I mean, that's why I got to this where I'm like, well, outreach a little bit, but not really in any kind of functional way.
Understood. Understood. So when we look at traffic, right? Let me just share my screen because it's important that you understand some fundamentals before we get into it. So when we look at traffic, there are two forms of traffic that we can get. We have cold traffic and we have warm traffic. So cold traffic essentially are people that haven't interacted with you, right? They don't know you yet. They don't come with a level of trust, and they might be relevant, but there is no trust there. And this is things like advertising. Warm is there is a high level of trust before they ever interact with you. And that's what you're seeing with word of mouth, right? We'll call it WOM for short. And so there are different stages to what kind of traffic source you get depending on where you're at in the business, right? Now, cold traffic, because it lacks trust, what happens is in order to get this kind of person to buy, especially at high ticket prices, you have to really build in a journey for that potential client to go through that builds up very strong levels of trust before they make a purchasing decision, right? On the other hand, with warm traffic, and you're seeing this, right? You can mess up a sales call, you can do the worst possible webinar or whatever it is, and they still end up buying. Make sense? And that's
Yep.
because the trust is high. And so with cold traffic, in order to get that to work, right, it has massive advantages because you can scale it up. The only problem is that in order to get it to scale up, it is way more complicated than a lot of people give it credit for, right? They go into this thinking you push a button, you have a bunch of people coming to you, life is going to be great. And what they quickly find is these people, they don't show up to sales calls, they don't buy programs, they don't show up to webinars. There's a whole bunch of stuff that actually goes on here. And so they give up on it and say that, oh, you know what, that whole cold traffic advertising, it's a scam, without realizing it's not, it's a scam, is that you're doing it at the wrong stage of the business, right? If you do cold traffic, i.e., ads at an early stage of the business, it's going to be absolute suicide for business because it'll be a black hole. You'll throw your money in it and it'll generate nothing, right? So on the newer phases of running the business, cold traffic advertising is really not the way to go. And I could give you 100 arguments for that. And I say that, with expertise, because we spend $80,000 a month just on Facebook and Instagram ads alone right now, right? And I never recommend it for people that are doing less than $500,000 a year because it ends up being a black hole. Now, with warm traffic, here are the advantages of it, right? They already come with a level of trust because they're either introduced to you through word of mouth, or they get referred to you through a joint venture partner. And really, with warm traffic, you want to maximize the amount of warm traffic you can get in the business. But what is the real problem here with word of mouth, right? The real problem is scale, right? If you could get more word of mouth clients, you would, right? But you just don't know how. And there is a source of traffic that a lot of people don't even realize is available to them. And it's a warm source of traffic. It costs you $0 upfront, right? People come to you with a high level of trust, and it's almost like word of mouth at scale, right? Word of mouth at scale. And that source of traffic is really interesting because it's something that the gurus online, they never talk about it, right? And yet every single one does it. It's right in front of your eyes, but they never sell programs on it. They never create videos on it. They never even talk that they actually use that kind of traffic, and yet they all do it. And that kind of warm traffic is what we call as joint venture. So essentially, what a joint venture is it's somebody who has an audience, right? They have an audience. And that audience could be a newsletter, it could be an email list, it could be a YouTube channel, it could be a podcast, it could be a group, right? A Facebook group, LinkedIn group. Essentially, they've built up an audience, right? They've built up an audience. And so that audience has known to trust them. That audience is known to trust them. And so when it comes to them actually recommending you or Sabine, what happens is that trust also gets sprinkled onto you. And so they could recommend anything, right? They could recommend a coaching call with you. They could recommend a webinar. They could recommend an event. They could recommend like a whole bunch of things to you. But what happens is because the trust is already established, it ends up acting like a word of mouth. But instead of one-on-one, this person has 10,000 people on a mailing list. They might have 100,000 YouTube subscribers, right? And so this is essentially what that form of traffic is. And what you want to do as a new coach is you want to scale warm traffic. So the question really becomes here is, okay, if there are these people with these audiences, and why would they be willing to promote me? Maybe you don't have a lot of testimonials, you don't have a lot of case studies. Why would they actually be willing to promote me? And there's this great phrase, right? Which essentially says, follow the money. And so when you look at people with audiences, what you'll find is very few of them monetize their audience to its maximum potential, and very few of them actually offer coaching services to their audience. Sure, some do. But when you look at the wider scope of people that have audiences, how many actually offer coaching to the audience, right? Very few. And so what happens is that becomes a huge monetization opportunity, which they don't have for their audience. They might be selling low ticket products. They might be selling low ticket courses. They might be selling a whole bunch of other stuff, but they may not be selling high ticket coaching. In fact, in all likelihood, they won't be selling high ticket coaching. And there are multiple reasons for that, right? It's very high touch. Clients expect a lot. You're probably going to need to get on calls with them in order to sign up the client. And all of these things, they just don't want the hassle of doing it. And so when you come and offer them a monetization opportunity where you say, look, I'll do all of the work. You refer the clients to me. I'll do the calls to enroll them. I'll deliver the programs. I'll make sure the client is happy, and I will pay you a commission on any sale. You end up providing them with a monetization opportunity which they didn't even think of, right? And even if they did think of it, nobody was really offering it because it's just not very commonly known joint ventures for these kinds of audiences. And so what happens is you provide them with a monetization opportunity which they just weren't doing, right? And it allows them to monetize their audience. And it's funny, Sabine, like I remember we were dealing, one sec, I'll pass it to you in a moment. We were dealing with a new coach, right? This guy had a great story, right? Went through a heart attack, a middle-aged guy, was very, very fit, woke up in hospital, his wife by his side, his daughter by his side, and he realized that he had undiagnosed heart conditions. And this was a guy that used to run marathons, did triathlons and all of that. And so he went on this whole journey where he realized that if he had just figured out what the issues were, he would have been able to avoid that heart attack entirely. And so when he came to us, He said, you know what? I went through this whole journey. I want to help others as well. He had a great story, no testimonials, hadn't worked with clients before. And we worked with him and we said, like, look, there's this YouTuber here called Ivor Cummings. He's a heart health YouTuber, right? So he approached Ivor, he got on a podcast. This guy made $10,000 in the space of a few days with that first joint
Wow.
venture opportunity, right? Ivor promoted him, drove a ton of clients to him instantly, made $30,000 the next time Ivor promoted him, right? So it's very, very powerful because what he did was he provided that YouTuber with an opportunity to monetize the audience, which he wasn't doing. Make sense?
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I think I cut you off. You were going to mention something as we were going through this.
Not necessarily. I just completely agree with you, and I see that the way you're illuminating the angle of it is really probably not something that most people really see. Not me, for sure.
Exactly. Exactly. And yet, if you looked in your email inbox, right after this hot seat session, you would see it in front of your eyes. It's like seeing the Matrix. You'll see a bunch of people promoting other people, right? You will see it right there. And so you create an opportunity for all of these people to actually make more money for their audience, which they weren't doing by taking the work off their hands, which they just don't want to do. And so the real question then becomes, right, is okay, this sounds all well and good. There are all these people with audiences, wonderful, right? You provide them with a monetization opportunity, but why would somebody with a massive audience promote me, right? And the answer to that is they probably wouldn't. And you should be glad that they don't, right? We had somebody, I remember this. Um, I remember this. We had somebody who managed to get a joint venture partner to promote them. And this person, right, had 1 million subscribers on YouTube. And this person promoted them. And it was just, they had a coaching business, which was just them and their virtual assistant. You know how many leads it drove to her calendar? 800.
Oh
800
boy.
high ticket leads to the calendar instantly. It broke the business, right? She was booked out for like 4 months, right? And that's what happens. The bigger guys, they probably won't promote a smaller person because they just don't have the capacity to. But these are the big guys. The smaller guys, they have a lot of scope for promoting newer coaches, even if they don't have a lot of testimonials, even if they don't have a lot of experience, their willingness to promote new coaches is still there. And so, to kind of wrap this up, Sabine, right? If you want to scale the business, you have two ways to do that. You either go through cold traffic or you scale warm traffic. Scaling cold traffic, it's dangerous until you get to a point where you can take some of the losses, right? That's what it's going to be. Warm traffic, it's able to scale massively using these joint ventures, right? And there are thousands and thousands of people with these audiences you will not believe, right? Podcasters, YouTubers, people with email lists. And you just need to get them to promote you in exchange for a commission. And just so you know, commission percentages range between 10 and 35%. That's typically normal for high ticket coaching. So, is there anything, any aha moments or anything illuminating for you that's opening up as we're going through this? Just before we wrap up
Well,
the whole.
the aha moment for me is really like, really, I've not focused on the value that I know I can provide, but I don't know how to position myself in such a way that that can be illuminated. That I haven't seen in that way. It's like, okay, actually, I'm doing a bunch of the stuff that you don't want to work. I always looked at it the other way around. You're doing something for me, so I owe you something. It was upside down.
It's crazy. And you have, in order to really understand it, Sabine, you have to put yourself in their shoes. If I have an audience of 100,000, I'm married, I have a couple of kids, I have a whole life, I'm making decent money, maybe a few hundred grand a year. Why would I want to dump another 30 hours a week of work by integrating this coaching thing, right? I wouldn't want to. Why would I want to do that? And then it's like, okay, well, maybe I can hire people to help me out with it. Well, all of a sudden you're not making a few $100,000 a year anymore because now you have staff. So it's a catch-22 for them. It's like they've heard of coaching. They know how their audience would eat it up. They don't have the capacity, probably nor the desire to even risk what they're making. And so when you come in and make that opportunity available to them at no risk on their side and only upside because the commissions are there, it becomes a no-brainer. You see what I mean?
100%. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Sabine, thank you so much for coming on the hot seat.
Thank you for the opportunity. I learned a lot here.